Chapter 81, The Jalopy. Of course, since Sam was unable to think about doing anything else with himself, Sam's directionless life was beginning to take its toll on him as he began to feel himself lose touch with his own senses. Sam always had this unique problem of his, that whenever he'd have a thought that made him feel dread, disturbed, or distressed, sometimes it would get stuck there for weeks, even sometimes months on end, and then he'd start creating weird rituals to combat them. Day after day, week after week, Sam continued to frivolously waste away his time as he did, as the memory of his days and weeks began to dissolve away into the recesses of his mind. Time just stopped making sense to him, and life stopped having meaning for him as he continued carrying out the course of his days. I'm turning into one of them, like everyone around me, all expressionless and carrying on like broken-in mules. I call them the Fedora people, thought Sam, walking the streets of New York City as people with fedora hats passed him by. To become one of them is what it means to become old and to lose one's meaning and direction in life. You could still be in your 30s, but to become an old man, that's a choice you make. And then you could just see it in a person's dress and character, all flat as a flat tire. To be one is to conform to one's mundane, meaningless surroundings and just become like just another potted plant, one with the scenery. No soul, no drive, no ambition, because it's all been lost. Sam would think a lot of stuff like this as he watched people pass him by, watched and saw the directionless sense within them, felt within himself. Ironically, although they're still a proud group of people, they like to stand proud, walk proud, looking all dignified all the time. But I see past all that. I see past all of it. Really? They're just people left in ruins, left like abandoned ancient cities after thousands of years of decay, erosion, and neglect. Left like spirits of some ghost town, left wandering through their dismal lives, wondering when it could end, if it could end, if it'll end, could it end? Most of them, I bet, wishing it would. Sam didn't particularly like wearing any of those hats of theirs, conforming to wearing one, because he always felt like he wanted to stand out. I don't want my life to be so meaningless. I don't want to just fall in with the rest, take a number, and spend the rest of my life standing in line waiting for death. I don't want to wear their gray and tasteless uniforms they wear so proudly, as if it would be my honor to accept such emptiness. The hell with all that, and the hell with all of them. I can't stand most of them either. They're all formal and polite all the time, and everything is routine for them, since they're too afraid to break away from all those boundaries they've set up for themselves. Break away and try to live in life again. Bring some meaning back into things. They're all cowards, really. Broken, pitiful, lousy bunch of stinking cowards. Nuts. And I'd be damned to become one of them, too. But then there was something else. They all scared the hell out of me, too. There's something very dark and hateful and twisted within them that makes me think maybe it would be better if they're left alone as ruins unto themselves. Because ghost towns can be haunted and carry a lot of bitter, brooding, spiteful, hateful spirits, just waiting to get a chance to possess something that's still living. They ain't just all so pitiful. There's a lot of evil and hell that I see dwelling in their abandoned hearts. They wear their uniforms, speak all formal-like, and try to come across as such swell people because they're really trying to hide all that dwells within. As Sam continued to eye them, one passed him by and began to eye him back. And Sam grew scared as he felt like he got a bit of insight into that man's true nature, all that was really there beneath the surface. I once had a friend named Jimmy Valentine, a real hip cat, hipster, that was all into that jazz scene in Harlem, and with all them nigger musicians and artists down there. A real intellectual type that once brought up this whole thing in Greek philosophy done by Plato called What do you call it? The allegory of a cave. Yeah, that's what it was. Jimmy was a bit of a weird character. A reefer addict like most of the bunch down there, thinking too much into stuff and really sort of full of himself. But I kinda liked him. And I can't deny I like the sort of broads he attracted. What is it with his type and the gorgeous broads they can pull, brother? It makes me wonder. But anyways, I did sort of like what I understood of that allegory thing, but also sort of didn't. Supposedly what it is a scenario introduced, showing an example into the human condition. The scenario being, imagine a group of people born and raised in a cave, never being taken out to see the real outside world and the sun, and then being raised facing a cave wall their entire lives, staring at shadows casted by actors with shadow puppets or something. All the world to those people are those shadows made by those shadow puppets, by an unknown group behind them, which they also never see. The play of shadows is all they've ever seen in their entire lives. That's all they know. Now, what if one day they were taken out and show the real world outside? The question is, what would they think then? Now, my buddy, Jimmy, got really excited about the idea of how they'd see the real world outside and be filled with godly joy seeing how beautiful it is compared to the crummy conditions they were forced to live under when they were held captive in that cave. Jimmy got so excited explaining all this, so excited. But as for me and what I thought, the idea sort of scared me to think, because I don't think that group of former cave dwellers would like much what they'd see. I think they would grow terrified seeing how big and scary the world is, and then want to go back into that cave and pretend like they never saw any of it. That, me personally, is what I think. And now, after having thought about this, Sam thought about the Fedora people and how he saw them under this new light. I get that allegory. I get it, because it's something I've seen all around me. Through these people, they're all asleep, really, living their lives in a forgotten dream. Maybe it's better if they're left that way. They live in a world inside their heads, an ignorant bunch afraid of what goes on the outside. But unlike that whole allegory thing, I think they know exactly what the world is, and somewhere in the back of their heads, exactly how it is and how terrifying it is. And that's why they choose to want nothing of it. And if that wasn't enough, it's not just the outside world that's terrifying. Sometimes it's the inside world. After that Jimmy character had told Sam about that whole Plato allegory thing, Sam that night had a dream. One where a man from outside was brought in a cave and told, and now listen to this one, this is a doozy, that the cave is supposed to represent one's soul, and what you'd find down there deep within is what you truly are. Sam had dreamed about this, or really a nightmare, seeing one of these Fedora people brought to a cave in the dream and made to venture into it. As the man went in, heading in deeper and deeper, Sam, like an invisible spectating entity in his own dream, watched the man finding himself lost in the dark, feeling like he was going in circles, heading in and heading down, going around and around like on a carousel, on an infinite number of loops all headed inward, spiraling to the abyss of his own inner being, as if to find definition, to find meaning as what it meant to be, who he really is and was, and will always be. And when the Fedora man had reached the bottom and found what he was looking for, what he saw was... I don't recollect what the hell it was, but whatever it was, it terrified me half to death, for I woke up screaming my head off. What the hell was it? I mean, he saw down there. What the hell would make him... Sam now felt like dropping this. It had terrified him good for a while then, a week or two after hearing about that whole allegory thing. But whatever the insight he had also given him an insight to a lot of other things, as he now started to look at all the Fedora people and felt like he better understood them. Imagine something as dark, hateful, and twisted as them one day waking up Whatever hell that really dwells deep within them, coming out then, God knows what. Maybe they're cowards, because they're really afraid of what their own true nature is. And what would happen if they were given a chance to break away? Men and women that have imprisoned themselves in their own mild-mannered hells, because they're afraid of the evil that would come out of them if they were only given a chance. They might all turn on each other then. They might be cowards, but even with such, you can't deny the hell they've all have lived and been through to become this way. A hell that's been built up for what feels like centuries. That's better left asleep than awake. On Mondays and Tuesdays, Sam worked at his father's barber shop, cutting the same hair, speaking the same speak, and grew sad, irritated and weary, watching his father have the same outbursts. His father would go, all violently and intensely, while no one would seem to be bothered much by it, all seeming asleep in their own worlds, while his father had his moments, as they all sat by reading their papers. I hate him, thought Sam. I hate the old man. Want to know his story more? Well, here you go. Really? You would expect a lot of pride from a man that lived the life he's lived, done the stuff he's done, but the fact of the matter is, he isn't. How can he go on as he does? How can he be so humble for what he's done, for the sacrifices he's made in the First Great War? He should be a proud man of high esteem and honor that everyone should be respecting. Yet, there he is, seeming to be content with cutting the hair of some Wall Street hi-hat broker, some fat cat dipshit who'd have his daddy buy him out of the draft, who wouldn't even look my father in the eyes while he's paying them after he's done cutting their hair. Sam was also a very observant man, especially to things such as this, and he'd seen this happen sometimes with some of old Joe's clients. Because if he did, that rich asshole, looking my father in the eyes, that would mean he'd be lowering himself to the level of some lonely old servant whose only duty in life is to serve his kind. My pops, that's what he's content with, living with. I mean, I see how those Upper East Siders types look down on the rest of us. I see where they see themselves in life and where they see the rest of us. Well, I can understand them looking down at most, but how dare they do that with my father, when he's really better than them all. I've seen them, those pompous Rockefeller types, staring my father down from the corner of their eyes with a look of disgust, as if my father is riddled with fleas and his hands are too dirty to be getting anywhere near theirs. I hate the old man. How can he not see it for himself? Or worse yet, does he see it and does he just accept it? He's such a pitiful sap. It boggles my mind how he can be so. When considering all he's accomplished, how can he have such little respect and consideration for himself and who he is? I mean, the man is such a pitiful sap. Eventually my mother left him while I was a kid because she just couldn't stand the sight of him anymore. Couldn't stand him and the boredom any longer. Couldn't take being in such a tasteless and passionless marriage to a man who couldn't even muster up enough heart to confront her when she told him she was leaving us. Yeah, I had to watch that. I was 12 years old at the time, and I watched her yell and scream at my father for a good hour, call him a worthless nobody, a good hour watching her yell and scream at him, trying to provoke something out of him, some type of reaction and emotion that would give her a reason to stay, something. But all to no cost, for all the old man did in that hour was just stand there and stare at the wooden floor, all dreary like, while allowing her to put him through all that humiliation. And when it was all said and done with, when she said goodbye to him, she left, and all he could do then was go back to his daily routine. His meaningless daily routine. His regiment. At 8 p.m., sharp, My father has this thing where he'll go to his room, sit in a chair, and spend the next 2 hours whittling a piece of wood and turning them into toys, which he likes to give away to his patrons at work, to give to their children. And at 10 p.m. sharp, he'll turn the lights out and go to sleep, and I don't know what to think or say about that, all that. My mother left, and all the old man could do then was go back to his pointless hobby. And it really is a pointless hobby, too. Also sad. I remember a year ago I was standing outside the shop having a cigarette while on my break and seeing one of those fat cat brokers exit one of my father's toys at hand. I saw him then step over to a trash can and throw my father's works of art in. A moment passed through Sam then, as the sadness of it all really began to set in. I know how much he loves children. I know he's got a kind-hearted soul, but I know. But then the anger took over. Fuck him and his kind heart. No one gives a damn if you're a good soul in kind, for the world is only separated in two ways. You're either strong or you're weak. And all a kind heart is a weak heart that has no place in this world if it wants to survive. My father has no stake in this world, and he is unable to make any because of his stupid, worthless, kind heart, which has really ruined him as a man. Fuck him and those little wooden toys he loves to make so dearly. I mean, the entire house is littered with them, because that's all he does on his off time when he isn't working. The entire fucking house. I mean, really. Sam was panting now, thinking about all this. Is that what's more important to my father than to see my mother, his wife, leave us? A bunch of worthless, lousy trinkets that my father would make for other people to throw away as garbage. Yeah, Pops, it's garbage. They're garbage. Everyone sees them as that, and because of that, everyone sees you as that as well. What it all comes down to is you're either a brave man in this world or you're really a stinking coward. And only a coward would confine himself to such nonsense while things that really mattered he would allow to simply get up and walk out the door. For a bunch of lousy fucking... That's what's all the world to him. Not his honor, not his pride, not us, but that. He's nothing. He's a nobody. No one gives a damn about him. Yet he still continues to stubbornly live on by, giving a damn about others. He is a disgrace to himself and his name, my name. I mean, what did you mean when you said... And now came the question that truly puzzled Sam on his father's stance on him, the war, and all that entailed. When you said I shouldn't join because you saw that I wasn't interested in enlisting, how the other boys were in the neighborhood, doing it for all the right reasons, making it sound like I was doing it all for the... And what would they be? Huh? The wrong ones? After I asked him an endless amount of times why he didn't want to see me enlist, that's all he had to come up with. Telling me I was doing it all for the... Sam kept trying to wrap his mind around it, and with every turn, it failed to grab hold. No. Don't think about it. No. He wouldn't know what he's talking about. Don't allow yourself to become confused with the nonsense that a man like that has to offer. Right reason, wrong reason. What would he know about any of that? The only wrong reason involved here are the ones of not joining in at all. In the end, all that matters is that he's a coward, and yet he seems to gladly accept it. How can he be this way? How can he be so pathetic? How can he... I hate him.